All right. Hey, we're here. It's Saturday. It's the half hour of horror with me, Aaron McLean. My co-host as usual. Oh, hey, it's Chase. What's going on, buddy?
How's it going, Aaron? How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a rainy Saturday here in Georgia, but full of donuts and ready to talk about one of my favorite movies of the year. And special guest, one of my partners in crime, Patrick Mediate. Welcome.
What's going on, man? I love that not one intro, but two
Yeah,
intros.
yeah. Well, when you don't uncheck the loop button, it just goes and goes and goes, and
I
you're like,
love it.
oh.
I love the intro. I could have gone for two more intros.
Intro's so nice, you got to play it
I live
twice.
for those.
Right
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody checking us out. Hey, you guys held it down last week. I was dealing with some family stuff, and you guys really, hats off. No, I'm going to keep my hat on, but pretend I'm taking my hats off for you guys for holding it down. Great work. What a great discussion. I really enjoyed it because I listened to it on the plane, and I was like, man, these guys they got it. They held it down. So I wasn't worried, but it really was nice to know that you guys handled it so well and put on such a great show with great guests. Some good stuff to talk about. So thank you again for covering.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
We did. We really tried hard. We brought it from the heart. Brought it from the heart for you, man. We wanted to do you proud.
2025. Like, it was funny though, because I'm bad at listening to podcasts because I'm listening and I'm like, what? I hope they say this. I hope somebody says this. Please talk about this. And like, you guys hit most of the points, but there were so many times where I'm like wanting to jump into that conversation. This is why I host podcasts and I don't listen to as many. But it was really fun. Today we're talking about one of the ones that came up multiple times on the episode as one of the best of the decade, let alone 2024. I mean, it was my favorite horror film of the year last year.
Same.
We're talking about The Substance today. Chase, you have a little you got a little thing to show off.
Yes, I do. Just came in this week.
Ooh, do
The
not
activator.
That is
Yes.
sexy, Chase.
Hey,
beautiful.
I want to look like Jacob Elordi. Okay, I'm gonna take it.
I'll take it, man. I love it.
Amazing. And then we are also Pat. You have something to show off too.
I mean, this is just totally bootleg, but I've been shouting this film from the rooftops for 2 months, so
you
I'm
have to
just
show
gonna
it
hold
off.
it. But the Blu-ray,
Nice.
it's not legal at all. I mean, clearly, but don't come after me. But the real one comes out in a few weeks. But I just couldn't resist. I've seen it a couple times already. What a baller movie! Like it blows you away. And I also see Christopher Carlson in the waiting room down there. He's got to pop up in this conversation too.
Boom.
Yo,
Chris.
There he is.
Oh,
There he is.
What's happening, man? Welcome to the show, Christopher.
thank you.
Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself. Let us know what you got going on, and then let us know what you think about The Substance.
Well, my name is Christopher Carlson. I am a horror hound. Patrick knows these things. I've been watching horror since I was 4, and I probably have seen more than most in the weird world that we call horror. I've worked in the entertainment industry for 15 years on a lot of things, movies, TV shows, commercials.
What do you do?
I'm a camera assistant.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of that. Never worked in any horror, though, which sucks. That would have been a lot of fun.
Trust me, it's awesome.
I can imagine.
As a big horror fan, and I've done mostly horror, I've been very lucky to get to, like, it's so cool to wake up and be like, zombies, dead bodies, exploding heads.
It's great. It's awesome when I meet people that I like look up their resume or their IMDb, and I'm like, you worked on Nightmare on Elm Street 4? What the fuck? Like, talk to me about that. They're like, oh, it was the worst. I hated it. The job sucked.
Yeah,
no one ever seems to have fun.
But that's the thing. Those old heads have been around so long, they get jaded. This
I know. I completely agree.
This mask painted by the original makeup artist for Part 3, which is my favorite.
Oh, hell yeah.
So,
Part 3. Dream Warriors, baby.
Dream Warriors is the best.
Yeah.
And that room is beautiful, man.
I know. Thank you. I've been working and cultivating. Yeah, man. What was your starting at 4? That's particularly young.
Yeah, it was Nightmare on Elm Street.
I have a 4-year-old right now. She loves Freddy. She calls him the ouchie baby, but I would never show her the movie. Which one of your who showed it to you? Older brother,
Oh no,
parent?
my mom let me watch it. My mom and I, we
Love
used to
it.
watch all the horror movies together, especially when I got like really into it. I'd show her the craziest shit, and she'd be like, "Christopher, what the hell are we watching?" And then she ended up loving it, though. She
Yeah.
always would like it. Like this movie, The Substance, easily would have loved this movie. She would have been grossed out, but
Well, I was going to ask because this is one of the ones that's like me and my mom would watch some horror movies together. Me and my brother, and it's like I'm glad I wasn't with anybody I knew. This is one of those don't watch with your parents movies.
really, I think it'd be an interesting watch with your parents just to see how they ingest what the themes are, because I think it transcends. Like this movie, I had no idea about this movie. I really stay away from trailers, spoilers. I was just in the subreddit of horror, and people were just like, the substance, and I was like, okay, I'll go see this. And I saw it on the Wednesday before it opens, and I had no idea what I was walking into, and I couldn't believe the amazingness I was witnessing. I was like, holy shit, this is a movie.
This is one of those movies. This is how I know I'm loved is when I start getting texts on a Thursday night. Aaron, you got to go see The Substance. I get like 15 texts. Oh my God, I just saw the grossest thing in my life. I thought of
Hell
you.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're thinking of me. People being like, Aaron, you have to see this movie. It's so fucked up. We thought of you. Like, I love
Yes.
this. And so Sunday night, I was like, I have to go see this movie. I'm sorry, I gotta go. So went and saw it. There were like 7 people in the theater because it was a real late
Oh, man.
screening in a tiny little theater. But
See, that's unfortunate though, because this
Yeah.
movie
I
begs
don't
to
know.
be seen with
I
the
think I would have
largest audience possible.
I would
Yeah,
have crawled out of my skin if it was a packed theater because it is
I would have been.
uncomfortable. It's so, and like there's moments where everybody's like, "Are we watching the same thing right now?" There were kids in the back, adult children with their parents, and their parents kept trying to leave, and the kids were like, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes." They stayed through the whole movie.
I saw it twice in theaters. Actually, I saw it
Yeah.
the first night, and then I think about a week later, once it started getting traction, I was like, I want to go into a theater that is packed specifically to experience it with other people to
Yeah.
see and hear the visceralness of their reactions, because it does something to you, man, especially if you're not in that world, because I think this movie really transcended that and like brought in a whole new audience to horror, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is such a good movie because it's just a good movie in general.
Mm.
To witness something so horrific, you kind of can set that aside when you realize what the movie's trying to speak towards. And I think just experiencing it with these laymen of horror was a different experience than just witnessing it for your first time. Maybe
Yeah.
it's better to see it on your first time by like more in a private situation.
It's a lot to process. Chase, what was your first experience with this? Did you see it in theaters when it came out? What'd you go to?
Yeah, I did. I went the opening Friday. This first kind of came on my radar when Long Legs came out back in July.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a trailer for it, and growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I really saw the kind of like Demi Moore at her peak. And then around the 2000s, once she hit her 40s, unfortunately for a lot of actresses around that time, once they kind of hit their 40s, they just didn't get casted in roles. And I just remember seeing this very vague trailer with Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, Dennis Quaid, and I was like, ooh, because again, when a trailer is so vague like that, it draws me in as opposed to showing the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
The worst.
So I went and saw it, and yeah, just not knowing anything about it. Just only thing I knew is Demi Moore's in it, and I was just, again, like you, Aaron, I went on a Friday night at like 9:00 at night. There were maybe 6 or 7 other people in the theater, and I was just like blown away by it.
It is a wild headspace of a movie. It really rips you apart and puts you back together. We're going to get into it here. Pat, first time seeing it, what'd you think?
Well, I saw it
I called
on
you.
my own.
I
Yeah,
called you that night
you
because I
called
was
me that
like,
night.
"Oh,
You
bro."
called me, yeah. I went on my lonesome because I didn't know, what to expect from it. I didn't know who to even take to this movie because, you just I can't find a horror fan, let alone someone who would see something this extreme. And
Yeah.
I didn't know it was extreme at the time, but I'll tell you, like seeing the previews of The Substance, I was a little apprehensive to even see it because at the roots, the story has been told so many times, right? Someone injects something, and I thought it was just someone injects something into their body that makes them youthful and it goes awry or whatever, which it sort of is, but it's all in the direction. It's all in, and we'll obviously get into this. It's all in how it's made and how the scenes are constructed, and there's so many other elements to it that go above and beyond and transform that kind of age old film that's about the fountain of youth, that's been told for centuries, and just transforms it into this incredible knockout, disgusting, gross out, in your face film. So that was my first experience with it. That I was in a packed audience. They were
Mm.
all freaking out. It was the best time I've ever had in a movie. We've all felt as one in the theater together. We were all witnessing this and enjoying it. In fact, it made me feel just so excited to like be seeing a movie like this in a theater with a shared
Yeah.
experience with an audience, because I think a lot of that has dropped off, and this movie makes it brings into the forefront why that's so important and why that shared experience is part of the movie experience.
Yeah.
I left with a cinema high, like coming out
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
so
100%.
jazzed, so enthused, so excited about movie making. Most of the time when I go to a movie theater, I leave angry because of the movie theater experience. There's kids talking, people on their phone. I want my money back, whatever it is. The screen has a rip on it, like whatever it is. There's always I have had declining theatrical experiences, and this was one of those moments. Even though there was only 7 people there, it was like I left so jazzed about movie making and movies and what was possible. I couldn't believe this got a theatrical release. This was actually dropped by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was like,
I thought it was Universal.
"You're right. You're right.
Yeah, it was
Universal.
Universal.
My bad."
Yeah.
Dropped by Universal.
see
Universal
that.
watched it and went, "Oh no! Oh
They
no!
asked her
No!
to
No!"
asked her to redo like the whole movie, and she was like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah, no. So
Here's-
smart because
Here's the crazy thing, though.
yeah. What you got?
This movie had a budget of 17 million. 17 million. Universal saw it, like you said. The executives like, "Oh, we can't release this. This won't
Yeah.
do well." Sold it to independent streaming service Mubi, who released it in theaters. The movie made for $12 million. That's how much they sold it to Mubi for. The movie made $78 million at the
Oh,
Hell
box
yeah.
office.
Universal's just
It's
like
perfect. It's perfect to show you that like there's two things about studios and big studio system.
It's too big now.
They're
too
they're
big.
too big.
They're
Like
too big.
and because they're so big, I personally think it just comes down to not wanting to take chances. And I think when you don't take risks, you don't take chances.
Yeah.
Like that when you're approached with it, and you have so much at stake, and there's so many cooks at a studio like Universal, you're gonna miss out on these opportunities to reap the reward. And you know what? Like that's
And
why big studio is just kind of
if you put on your executive big studio glasses and you saw this movie, you would not see a hit though. You would see a polarizing
You wouldn't.
gross out. You wouldn't see it because you are looking for what the formula
Yeah.
says,
Who
what the algorithm
who can we
says.
market this
Exactly.
to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody. But Demi Moore, this is the star power of Demi Moore. She put this movie on her back and says, "It's staying. We're not editing it. I stand by
Yep.
my director. I
Yeah.
stand by my co-stars." She said, if you want to cast me in something, you will keep it the way it is. And she got this movie in the director's vision out, because the director, Coralie Fargett, how do we say
I think
her
it's
name?
far.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
some French chick.
Yeah. So she did a movie called Revenge. She doesn't have the credits to get Final Cut.
No.
I'm just going to be honest. She's done. She's great. Obviously, Revenge was a good movie. She did some of the Sandman TV series. She did an episode of that, but she hasn't done enough movies to get Final Cut like that. That is all Demi Moore, standing by her director, standing by the vision, standing by the script, and all credit all credit to Demi Moore for believing in it, even though like this she's out there in this movie. She puts herself 100% into it. And this is why she's winning Golden Globes. This is why I think they're putting it back in theaters. They're going to do an Oscar run, and she deserves it.
I'm excited for them to put it back in theaters.
It's in reach for her.
Yeah.
I shout this from the rooftops too. I've been telling everybody about this. I said, do not underestimate this film come Oscar season. It is on. I can pull up. You know what? I haven't pulled up my PGA ballot because I'm the Producers Guild. I want to see if it's on the PGA ballot.
I don't think they released nominees yet.
I'm curious to see. I just got a ballot in my email. I just want to check it out and see, because like I just feel that this is the way it's made. The book ending of the film. Go see it if you haven't seen it, but it does feel like it's worthy of that kind of Oscar buzz.
Aaron, as you were mentioning, like this is one of the last movies I can remember that, like, after the movie, I talked to my friend who I went and saw with about the whole movie making in itself, like, oh, this part and the sound design and the editing and just, can you believe they thought of all these things to do and the end and this and that? And like, I can't remember a movie I've seen recently where I was so excited, not just about the film itself and like how it made me feel, but like how you said it got you excited about making movies again. I was like, wow, how creative to think of doing this. And like, it's so cool how this came back at the end and this and that. Like
Everything Everywhere at All at Once. That's the movie. That's the last movie.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Guys, it's on the ballot, guys.
Woo!
It is on the
Awesome.
So the way the Producers Guild Awards work is you go down the list and you rank the films you liked the best and from, in order. And The Substance is on the ballot.
Sick.
Is on the ballot.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
It's been few and far between, but like Everything Everywhere at All at Once was so creative, it blew my mind. I was super excited by all that. And then this, and it's like coming out of this, like you said, that it's doing so many things right. That sound design, especially when you're watching Dennis Quaid eat shrimp, like it's so powerful. Gross, right? Super gross. Whoever
maybe one of the grossest. Honestly, one of the grossest film. I mean, and you there's in your face stuff, but that is hard to watch.
That's the point of it, like they're like, this is gonna be disgusting, and we're gonna start it off with something so mundane as eating shrimp, and it's gonna gross you the fuck out. But wait until the end. Like, right? It's all just prepping you. It's just the whole movie preps you for that finale.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because Chase, I wanted to bring this up because you have one of the posters on your wall. When we talked about Jennifer's Body, we did a whole episode about Jennifer's Body and the lens of that movie and how that movie didn't really objectify Megan Fox. And we talked about, was that necessary? Was that not necessary in a movie that led you to believe that's what it was going to be? Totally going a different way. And we had decided it's like, that's not what that movie was about. That's what this movie was about. It was like, we are going to objectify to the point that you're like, whoa, I'm in public right now. Whoa. It was a wild, like the cameras are just carving up butts left and right. They're just like right up in there. And it is meant to elicit a reaction from you, because regardless of your reaction, in about 45 minutes, it's just gonna slap the shit out of you for it. Whether you're grossed out, whether you're like, oh no, this is gratuitous, whether you're like, oh, this is kind of hot, whether you're like, okay, that's enough. They are eliciting a reaction so that in 45 minutes they can just beat you over the head with whatever feeling you had about it, which is just brilliant.
One thing I want to talk about really is the casting choices for this movie, because you have Demi Moore, who was huge in the 80s, huge in the 90s. Her career started kind of fading off once she hit her 40s in the 2000s, and it was just like she was under constant media scrutiny. Like, she was dating Ashton Kutcher, who was like 16 years younger than her. And all the media had a field day with it. Why would she go? Why would he go for this old woman? Where they wouldn't say shit about someone like Alec Baldwin dating a woman like 35 years.
Leo.
But before that, she's married to Bruce Willis. They were like a Hollywood power couple. Then she starts dating Ashton Kutcher. Like all this wild stuff.
And then there was like, she was under media scrutiny I was actually reading an article like in 2010 at 47, she posted a bikini selfie on social media. People are like, she looked great, but people are like, the media was like, she's too old to be doing this. She's too old to be doing this. Where look at her co-star in The Substance. Just a few years prior, Dennis Quaid, who's about 10 years older than she is, had a shirtless scene in a movie. I remember that it was like a big deal. Flight of the Phoenix, which is an action film that came out 2004.
Yes.
Dennis Quaid was in his 50s. He has a shirtless scene and he is ripped. And the media was praising him like, oh, how did Dennis Quaid get an 8-pack at 51 years old? Like they were making, but look at Demi Moore a few years later, posted a bikini pic at 47.
Yeah.
We don't want to see that. Like, and also Dennis Quaid too. He's currently married to a woman that is a couple years younger than I am. And that's not made a big deal about, where with Demi Moore dating Ashton Kutcher, that was a big deal.
The funny thing about Demi Moore and the onset of this film is you see her, and I just saw on the side, KG was saying no spoiler alerts, but like spoiler alert a little bit. At the beginning, she is she's in aerobics. She's teaching an aerobics, like an actual televised aerobics class that's a show, right? She looks gorgeous. Demi Moore is beautiful, and like there's no I don't think any audience member looks at Demi Moore in that film and says, "Oh, like she's past her prime," right? Like
they're
she's
shooting her though.
I can
like
watch
that,
Demi Moore, forever, and then she's got this picture of her up almost the entire film on her wall, which she ends up taking down, destroying all that stuff. But it gives you that constant reminder of what she looked like throughout the film, and I think that just drives it home even more. Just once shit starts hitting the fan.
I also want to state this because of confidence. What you're talking about, confidence. You're talking about women putting it out there. Demi Moore didn't have fake prosthetics, whereas her co-star,
Margaret Qualley had. Her body's fake in that movie. She covered up. Demi Moore put it all out there, and I'm not saying one's right or the other is right. If you're not comfortable doing that, don't do it. I like that. I totally give Margaret Qualley props for doing what made her feel comfortable to do the movie. But
was that a choice? Was that her choice, or was that a director's choice? I'm curious.
It could have been.
It would have been thematically appropriate if it was like that. For Demi to be real, and then for Margaret to not be.
There's reasons behind it, but I'm just to ideate that point is that Demi Moore had to put herself completely out there. There was no barrier between her and anything else, and that's brave, regardless of any age. And her co-star, who was younger, didn't even have to go through that as in the same way. Which again, not that it's a judgment, but it's just like, man, Demi Moore really went for it here, and
it's such an artistic move on her part. It's so nice that and refreshing in our day and age where everything is just so the same cookie cutter stuff, and it's like there's no originality, there's no creativity, and like there used to be back in the 80s and 90s where it was still like you could still put some craziness out there and have an actor and director really behind it to push it, and it turned out into this amazing film. And now we have Demi Moore, who is probably just spearheaded this film to ensure that it came out the way it should have, which is exactly what we got to witness, and why I think it transcends like just the horror genre, and people are so excited about it, even though they've never seen anything remotely as grotesque as this movie gets. Like, it's so cool to be witnessing this.
It's amazing.
One thing I will say though, actually one point I want to make, Patrick, how you said throughout the movie, there's this constant reminder of what Demi Moore used to look like. Funny thing, me and my partner, what we like to do is watch old episodes of Tales from the Crypt. And just a couple of weeks ago, we were watching the episode with Demi Moore, and my partner was like, I actually think she looks better now than she ever has. But
she does. She actually. That's a really good point. She really looks terrific. She really does.
Oh yeah. And another thing is, one of the themes I noticed is going around for a lot of movies is kind of older women trying to find their place, who work in this entertainment field. A film I actually saw a couple days ago, The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson, kind of had like a similar theme to that, about a middle-aged woman who had this position in the entertainment industry for a long time, lost her job and doesn't know where to go next.
Right. I mean, and in that film, she, just not to get off a tangent on another film, but like the dichotomy between those two roles in Last Showgirl, which I saw as well, you know, and Pamela Anderson has been very vocal about this, not just in the film, but in press, right? When she goes on talk shows, she's not wearing makeup. She's chosen to go the route of, you know, natural, no makeup, no nothing. I mean, Demi Moore still chooses to put her face on. I guess that's like the 50s term, right? So there is a little bit of difference between the two in that way, and it's interesting to see that exploration by both of them.
I also think that, like, with Demi Moore, there was a point in time where she was taken seriously as an actress, especially in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
The Brat Pack. But I think with Pamela Anderson, she was never given that chance ever. She was always seen as a gimmick or a sex
Barbarella
or
Barbarella. I like Barbarella. I mean, I was the age where it hit.
she was never.
Jane Fonda got out of that. You know, she got out of that Barbarella era, and she became a Demi Moore type status. But like, it's interesting to look at that as well. That Pamela Anderson was objectified in sort of like this way where she was tossed aside and not taken seriously.
Yeah, she was just seen as kind of a sex pot with a big pair of fake boobs, where Demi Moore was like, at one point, like, yeah, you're a good actress, we'll put you in these roles. Where Pamela Anderson is now, like, where Demi Moore is now getting that opportunity to kind of show once again why she is a great actress. Pamela Anderson is just now getting that opportunity to show that she can act and can lead a film.
And it speaks a lot to the themes of the substance in general. I mean, I think personally, I think every woman should watch The Substance. I promote it, like any, you know, women I've been meeting, whether friends or whatever. I'm just like, have you seen The Substance? And they're like, no, that movie's supposed to be gross. I'm like, no, it's completely disgusting. But as a female, you should really watch this and try to go into it with what is this film trying to tell me and teach me and expose? Because there's so much there to glean as a female in the world that we live in right now. And I think for men too, like, to see it from their lens, because it's so much from a woman's perspective. You're like, oh my God, this is some fucked up shit. And this is how life is, though. And like, you don't really think about it as a man, you know?
And as a man watching it, you say to yourself, hey, I actually, you know, I wish we could kind of shake women too and say, you don't have to, you know, do this to yourself. You don't have to get some boobs. You don't have to get
do they have not have to, though? I mean, if they want to get ahead in life, it seems like they have to.
That's the point I'm getting. That's the point I'm sort of going to get to, is that this particular film is not only kind of geared toward a statement speaking about women in general and just, you know, be yourself, right, and not like put on the fake show, but it's also very, very pointed at Hollywood.
For sure.
Just from the first opening frames, this is directed at Hollywood.
Well, what's Dennis Quaid's name in the film? Did you guys catch that?
I don't remember.
His name's Harvey.
There you
Harvey.
Go. There
Harvey Weinstein, like not Weinstein, but obviously it's a direct. Direct.
I mean, never has there been a like just a perfect example of everything that was wrong at that time, and like, you know, he was a big slug that was a badly kept secret in Hollywood. Everyone knew, and it is exemplified in this, how disposable we treat starlets and how disposable we treat aging people in general.
As an audience too. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but like the scene with the audience, it's just like, this is what you asked for.
We are though, because I got to talk about it. Okay, here's what I will say.
Go ahead. I do have a fun fact. Prior to Dennis Quaid getting cast as Harvey, there was actually another actor who was cast in the role instead. I know, Aaron, you know it. Do one of you guys?
Oh, I don't think I know it.
I do not know it.
Go
Mel
ahead, man.
Gibson.
Tell
It was originally Ray Liotta,
Ever
but
since I was a
unfortunately,
kid,
Oh, what?
I was yeah. Ever since I was a
Unfortunately-
kid, I wanted to be a TV executive.
I'll
but
tell you,
Wow.
unfortunately,
I could see Ray, and he passed. I know he passed away, but I could see him in this. It would have been a different
Different vibe.
totally different Harvey. I don't know if I think it would have been just a little bit of a different film with him as Harvey.
honestly, I think
Yeah.
it worked. I think it worked better with
I think it works
Dennis
better.
Quaid.
Because Dennis
Because-
Quaid's more like homey. Like you remember him from what was that movie? Frequency?
Frequency, yeah. He's like
You know,
he's kind of
He's like that
dad,
American
you
dad
know?
guy.
Yeah,
you
He-
know.
he's played a nice guy more than he's played a bad guy. Whereas
Yeah.
Ray
Yeah.
Oh,
Liotta
yeah.
always has been a sort of a bad
guy.
And he's
But
so
I think
smarmy.
it works with Dennis Quaid best because again, look at the kind of careers of Demi Moore.
Mhm.
Dennis
Yeah.
Quaid. Demi Moore, once she got older, she just got casted off the side. She was just doing a lot of smaller roles, ensemble roles where she really wouldn't get to shine. Dennis Quaid, as he's gotten older, his career has not been affected. He's thrived. He's still considered a very bankable star. He's still getting big lead roles. And he's like, he's never really had a kind of a halt in his career because of his age.
Right. The movie's fascinating, and it is, when you look at the oeuvre of body horror that's out there, the Cronenberg movies. I compare this to the Society quite a bit.
Oh yeah,
very
sure.
much.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very,
If
very,
you want
very
an ooey gooey double feature, pair this with Society. Basically anything Brian Usna did with Screaming Mad
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
Beyond.
The Beyond,
Yep.
Reanimator, like those ooey gooey body horror movies, like that is such a moment. And Screaming Mad George, who is the makeup effects artist on The Beyond and on Society, loves that ooey gooey stuff. And like very rarely do you get so grossed out. I can just see the subtitles now, squelching. That's all you're just tons squelching. You're like
So good.
body horror doesn't hit really great with broad audiences, so it was amazing that this movie kind of tricked people into being there for it.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the basis of this is Demi Moore is aging. She gets hooked on this idea that there's something called the substance, and it's a little green bottle, and if you inject yourself with it, you birth a younger version of yourself, and then you have to trade off time with your younger version for 7 days on, 7 days off. There are consequences, though. There's implications, and it gets complicated. And one of the things that they say is, remember, don't use the activator twice. Oh boy. From the moment they say that, you're like, I wonder what happens when they do it twice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great body horror.
Oh yeah.
And in the third act, the movie becomes ridiculous. Like it actually takes a turn towards the comedic. Throughout the film, there's moments of odd comedy, using surrealism and sort of like a farcical nature, kind of like the movie Swiss Army Man, which is it's a joke. It's not. Is it reality? Is it not reality? They're like, it doesn't matter. You're already in the movie. Do you care or not? Like it does become a comedy, which is
for sure.
I don't like that was something that kind of bristled me when I'm watching. I'm like, really? Why? Like, why?
I think it's a catharsis though, because it's been building you up for this moment, and I thought the movie was going to end way before that happens. Before the end starts happening, I was like, okay, this is where we're going to end. Like that, I liked it, and then it goes into that third act, and I was like, oh, here we go. I am really excited now. And then you see, what we see. And I was just like, I already knew where we were going. And I was so excited. I was laughing. I thought everything was hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's just great. And then the people that were in the audience with me eventually started laughing as well. I think you have to like let it go. It's like you have to have that release that's been building and building, and then do they ever release it all over the place? And it is just fantastic.
Do you want to know how much? I looked this up. I figured it out. There's multiple reports to how much blood is used in the third act.
Uh-huh.
The director says it's like 300,000 gallons. She missed up the conversion because I looked it up from the special effects guy, and he said
Yeah.
that they used 5,500 gallons of blood and a
Wow.
5-pressure fire hose. It's one take, and they
I saw
unleash
a video like
Unbelievable.
just the other day
Jesus.
on Instagram, and I was like, amazing.
I'd like to compare that stat to just a similar sort of ending scene in a movie Peter Jackson did called Dead Alive with the lawnmower.
Yeah,
amazing.
Dead.
Compare the blood stats with that because I mean that
Well,
is
see,
also.
That actually got trumped by the Evil Dead remake in whatever it was 2012.
Oh, did it? Yeah.
That's the bloodiest film now. But I mean, it's insane how much blood was used in this movie. I was not prepared.
So there was 300 liters in Brain Dead, which is 70, basically 100 gallons. It's like 80 gallons, but I bet they used over 100 gallons for that scene. This film used a quarter of a swimming pool. The Freddy Alvarez one used rain tanks, which, you know, it is a statistic. They did earn it. But I'm like, but you made it rain blood, which is
you're not getting blasted by blood.
Yeah, you made it rain blood, which is metal as hell. Shout out to Slayer for rain blood. But
that is true though. That is a fair comparison, saying how many people were covered in blood in the substance versus the Evil Dead film, because I think there were only like one or two people in the scene.
Yeah.
Here you've got an audience just like
There's children in their audience too.
So 50,000 gallons were done for the Evil Dead remake in 2013. But again, that's a 50,000 gallon rain tank. And when you make it rain, that's different from it like coming out of somebody's body. To me, I feel like it's a little bit of a cheating thing to give it that statistic, but they earned it. They did it. 50,000 gallons. It's a lot. It was awesome.
This sounds like a challenge to me, Aaron. I mean, I don't know about you, but like.
I would always be down to try and make the bloodiest film ever in a go, but like 5,500 gallons of blood fired out of a high pressure water hose into a packed movie theater.
So good.
Can you imagine if this was like one of those like 4D events where you're like in the rumble chairs and then
my God.
firing out of the screen and everybody's just like
they need to release this in 4DX. I mean,
I would love it. I would be there opening night.
It would sell out.
Well, you know what? They call that as a Guar concert. You go to Guar, and you're pretty much experiencing that, anyways.
Yeah. I saw Guar in Boston when I was in college.
I've seen them twice. They're amazing.
Right. So they started making a mess, and then the venue tried to shut them down, and they're like, "Fuck this place up!" And they just released all the cannons at once. The crowd just started tearing the place to pieces. The cops showed up. We had to leave, but it was also like to the venue. Did you book Guar and not?
Yeah. Do you not know who Guar is?
Did you not do your research?
No. It was like in a nice nightclub, and Guar's just destroying this place.
They don't care.
It couldn't even be worse if you dumped 50,000 gallons of Faygo. Like they just went nuts. Every blood cannon, every worm shooting bodily fluids.
Let's give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, man.
Gallagher, come on now.
The movie, I just love that it became ludicrous. It bristled me the wrong way at first because I was kind of like, oh, why are you going that direction? But you're right. It needed to become palpable, because if you had kept it horrific the whole time,
it would have been too much.
It would have been too much, and people would have folded. And again, this is trying to. It wouldn't have landed the message. What it would have done is made gorehounds go and then your audience has just gotten this small.
Also you end up sympathizing with the monster, whatever you want to call we see, and you're like, and it's grotesque and awful, but yet you're like, you understand why you should feel empathy towards her, and you're just like, what? That's so depressing, and it's hilarious, but it's also so sad at the same time, and you're like, it's such a mix of emotions, and you're just like, You're on. That's when you know have been on a ride in a film this entire time, and you're just like, wow, that was an experience.
I just barfed up a tit. I couldn't believe it.
It is interesting
So
to
good.
see how women and men react separately. I got a call randomly 2 weeks after I saw this film, and I didn't recommend it to my aunt and uncle to see, and they live down in Nashville. They gave me a call and they said, "Hey, we got to talk to you." And I said, I for some reason I knew immediately they were going to talk to me about the substance. I don't know, I had a sixth sense about it. And it was interesting hearing their varying perspectives on speakerphone, my aunt and my uncle, and how they both absorbed the film. And it is polarizing in that way, because I think it's one of the few films that I think genders will see differently, I think, in ways.
Very
sure.
much so. Very much
Yeah.
so.
And also
Yeah.
generational. I think even generational.
Generational, yep.
You'll have such a different perspective.
Yep.
Oof. Speaking of Demi Moore's career, what's your favorite Demi Moore film before this? If this is even your favorite of her films, do you have a Demi Moore like highlight for you pre?
I need to look up her filmography.
I don't even know what's like.
Oh,
I'm
man,
sure I've seen
that's
Demi Moore movies.
So I'll list off a
That's an
few.
interesting one.
So I'll list off a few. You have Ghost, obviously.
Oh, that
Moonlighting,
was good.
Moonlighting, where she meets Bruce Willis. You have Ghost,
Mhm.
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble is a fantastic film. I don't care what anybody says.
I don't know about that, but it's a fun
It's
movie.
so much fun. It's so well in that sense. I mean, it's not like a great movie, but it's so much
Sure.
fun. It's one of my. It's repeat viewing. It holds up.
A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal.
Decent Proposal is great. That's
Disclosure, one of the versions of the Scarlet Letter that came out in 1995 that had everybody sweating. Hunchback of Notre Dame. She's the voice of Esmeralda.
That was
Striptease of
interesting.
1996.
Beavis and Butthead Do America.
She's one of the voices there. G.I. Jane. She shaved her head for it. Got a lot of
That's
flack,
right.
but really, really went out there for it. And then things start petering out as she does, TV series, bit parts, cameos, and whatnot. She's
She was in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, which I remember when that
She
came
was.
out, because that was kind of billed originally as like her comeback role.
Yeah.
Because the original, I think 2000 or 2001 Charlie's Angel movie was such a hit. And people were like, oh, Demi Moore, where she was playing the villain. And that was also around the time she started dating Ashton Kutcher, and their relationship was getting a lot of buzz too. But that was kind of like it for her, where it just started kind of petering off again.
She's in a movie that I love that nobody saw called Bunraku from 2010. And this movie has just such a stacked cast, but is so weird because it's all done in like the Japanese style of like shadow paper. Really incredible set design and use of light and color and shadows. But you have Josh Hartnett, Demi Moore, Woody Harrelson, Ron Perlman,
Wild cast.
And it's like a samurai gangster movie set in I mean, I don't know, it's wild. It's very stylized, but worth watching. I watched it and was just like, this is like beautiful cinema, but so bizarre and not for anybody, but everybody should check it out. But she's great in it. That was the one that I saw her and that nobody saw. And then she had a guest role in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent a couple years ago, which was super fun too. But yeah, for me, Ghost was my first introduction to her. That's the first time I saw her and was like, whoa.
She's not in a ton of horror, but remember, there's two films I want to call out. First off, I loved her in The Juror with Alec Baldwin,
right.
96 film. Great in that, but I also love that like kind of courtroom / thriller type genre film. But she was also in a film late 80s called The Seventh Sign. Does everybody remember that one? That was a good one.
Seventh Sign.
Film. Yep, horror film, drama horror. But sort of like cult related, sort of based on the Seven Seals. It's a fun movie. It's not a.
I don't think I've seen it. I think I've heard of it. I don't think
it was
I've
good.
heard of it.
Oh,
It
you
was
got
good,
Michael
and it's-
Biehn in this one.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's worth a watch
Okay.
just to see her in another horror film for comparison.
I mean, horror movies also have never been taken seriously until very
No.
recently.
Right.
Until very
No.
recently. Really until A24 started making movies that made people go, "Oh, wow." I mean, Hereditary was great. You know, very rarely does a horror movie get on the radar of award shows, and
No.
you know, Silence of the Lambs did it. You know, obviously
Get
Anthony
at-
Hopkins.
Jordan Peele's
Get
Get
Out.
Out.
Yep.
The Exorcist back in the 70s, Jaws.
Mhm.
That's really about it. That's really about it. And
Yeah,
there's only
very rarely.
ever been one horror picture to win Best Picture, and that was Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs. Yeah.
I mean, Sixth Sense also was one that people were like, "Whoa,"
yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Do you guys think this has a shot in hell at a Best Picture award?
No, I don't
I
think
think-
Best Picture, but I think Best
But
Actress
you
for
feel
sure.
like
I think
Yeah.
best. I think it
do you
will.
feel like it has a shot at a Best Picture nomination?
Yes. Yeah.
It should. I mean, I think it's one of the best movies I've seen in probably the last decade.
100%.
Yeah, agreed.
agree.
Agreed. I would
It's
give
just
it
a
the
movie,
Academy
not even
Award
just
for
as a
some-
horror movie, like separate. It is just a fantastic film.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
I think right now the way people are talking about for Best Picture, from what I'm reading and just seeing the early award stuff, I think it's going to end up being The Brutalist, the new A24
Yeah, I think-
drama film.
Yep.
But
I think you're sort of right, but it could also end up being Wicked. Just if you want to, it depends on how.
God.
It depends on how
I love that.
commercial.
Come on.
Look, Wicked was a lot of fun. But it depends on how they want to do it. Plus, remember, I worked for Mark Platt back in the day, and
Yeah.
he actually was the part of that whole thing around La La Land. He got up on stage, held the award, and then Moonlight actually won the award, not La La Land. So there could be some, Oscar sort of in-house Academy type. Give Mark Platt the nomination. That's like a really inside baseball thing. So I think it's either between those two, but The Brutalist I saw as well was very, very good. So it has some stiff competition for sure.
But I think it's going to be, when it comes to Best Actress right now, I'm kind of just kind of keeping up with what's going on. I'm kind of 50-50 in between Demi Moore for The Substance and Mikey Madison for Anora. But it seems like Mike Madison's kind of buzz is kind of cooled off a little bit, and it's kind of more Demi Moore's kind of becoming the front runner.
It has, but it's going to be between Cynthia Erivo and Demi Moore. I think that's the battle. That's the duke out there.
I really hope Coralie gets nominated for Best Director, because this is wild. I mean, it's wild, and to get your actors to feel comfortable enough to go that raw is amazing. And
Well, it's like real directing. Like she's actually directing a picture.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like how you don't see this anymore.
No, because
it's
now
the
everything's on a
director,
big
it's
green
film,
screen.
yeah.
You're like, you're gonna make this look cool later, right? All right.
Yeah.
Bye. You know, like
Right.
usually everything's directed in post, and it's like, or done all in previs. And this was like a real film made with real people.
Yeah.
Very practically done. And I was so impressed with that. To me, the best scene for Demi Moore isn't under heavy makeup. It isn't a gross out thing. It's not a horror piece. It's just her taking off her makeup dramatically.
That was brilliant.
And that scene was so devastating. It was one of those moments that you didn't expect it to be that hard. The date. And then she's like, she dresses up. She overly dresses up. She dresses down. And she's so anxious about it. And then she just starts violently taking off her makeup. And it was such a heartbreaking moment and so real.
I think you can relate to it regardless of your sex too, because it's like we all have those body image issues or just self-confidence issues. And you're like, oh man, it was heartbreaking.
There's also this thing throughout it where you make one sort of improvement, right? Something that you think is going to make you better, and then it leads to something that doesn't look as good. So like it's almost like one of that mentality of you're sort of either all in or you're stuck in the middle, and it's hard to like. There was that scene where spoiler alert again, where a little bit into the film where her finger, it's just her finger gets like gnarled and it's
decaying,
gross, and it looks like a witch finger. It's starting to decay, and even that finger, it's just making it worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's almost like you can't go back. You've started this down this and it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse.
Well, and I think that says a lot also about like when people try to overcorrect for aging, because we also live in an age where there's a lot of cat-faced people out there who are famous and rich and have money, and it doesn't really do anything. You make yourself look younger, you make yourself look plastic and fake, and that's a rough place to be, because you can't bemoan the sentiment of why they want to do it, but then they go too far, and then everybody's like, ha ha ha, look what you did to yourself. And it's like, oh, it's just, you can't win.
Well, here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that, is that it's when something becomes your identity. Like, I very much felt that Demi Moore's character in the film and it had the show, but the show was her identity. She didn't have. That's another like.
She wasn't introspective
like,
past
when
her.
When you don't have anything but something outwardly that becomes your identity, then you will feel like you've lost your identity, right?
Well,
like,
that's the thing too.
Like
well, that's the thing too. Even when, like you said, her identity was the show. Even when she becomes Sue after taking the substance, it's not like she gets this young body's like, oh, I'm going to do something even greater or even better. Yeah. She goes back to the fucking show. Like, she goes back to be her own replacement.
Because she's chasing that high that she had when she was first desired for the film industry. When her.
So you guys think they're the same, like, mind?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting point. It's a really interesting point, Chris, because like, I kind of wondered, and I got to rewatch this maybe again, because something throws me off a little bit, because when she goes into the younger self, when she turns into Sue, she goes on the show. Is Demi Moore's character cognizant of what's happening? Like,
I don't think so.
Or is she just asleep? And then, but that begs to differ. Like, then why? What's the benefit to her if she can't experience it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what's the real?
Here's the thing: is she's not cognizant, but here's what she's getting out of it. They are the same consciousness, because she's born and she knows how to do an aerobics video. She's born and she knows who to talk to. So her memories from that moment are there. And when they trade off, I don't think they're losing gaps of time to it, but she still gets to experience it. It's just in a different space. You just don't collectively reconcile those memories. And that's one of the things I try to remember, trying to figure out, is like, there's a lot, and I think that's part of why it's smart that it went into the absurd, the theater of this absurd, because they're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense if you really try to analyze how body splitting works. It's not science. We're making this up to tell a story. You almost had to go that direction, now that I think about it, because otherwise, if you kept it very realistic, then you're going to be like, well, wait, how does any of this work? And they're like, it doesn't, get over it.
Well, another scene that kind of shows, I guess, that I kind of thought maybe they do have the same memory was after Sue took an extra day to hook up with that motorcycle dude.
Yeah.
And when Demi Moore is walking back from getting her refill, she sees the motorcycle dude, and she's like, it's like she recognizes him and wants to say something, but she can't, because she doesn't, I guess, want to.
Oh, you're right. She does recognize him.
Yeah, remember, he's like, get the fuck out the way. And like,
right.
So it's like,
I mean, there's no way this film works if Demi Moore's character can't feel what's happening during Demi. Now, the question is, like, I mean, and it has to also work the other way around, because Sue has to, and she says this multiple times throughout the film. Like,
when Demi Moore eats all the shit,
right, she's trashing her body, and this, like, Sue is like revolting against that lifestyle, and she's like, no, I'm not. You're a pig. You're you're grossing yourself out. You're just going to shit. I don't want to have to deal with that. So they must be conscious of one another's.
I'm not sure if they are. I think it might just be like, then
what are they getting? Then what?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing too, because even Sue's first week, you remember she meets Dennis Quaid's character's Harvey, and she's like, oh, like all of a sudden on the fly, I have to be out every other week to take care of my mother who's sick.
Right.
So like, it's the fact that she came up with that, like, on the fly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have to see it again, but there were parts where I'm like, oh, maybe there's not anything really like binding them together in that sense. It's because like what was the catchphrase was like you are one or whatever the
There is no
thing
she,
that
you are one.
yeah, it was something like that. Like and you could stop at any time because you're the same or whatever it was. I think it's more of just like an allegory to like like allowing your younger self to have
I'm
these
saying with Chase's
experiences
point,
again.
yeah.
I think there has to be some sort of cognizant, but maybe maybe it's this hazy recognition, you know, like
Maybe.
man, like
Because then
if,
they end up, I mean, spoilers, but there's a scene with, they're
yeah,
in the same room,
yeah,
Yeah.
like conscious.
Fighting each other. Yeah.
yeah, and
Fighting each
I
other
think
inside each other. You know?
oh, it's a brutal fight too. It just goes on and on and on. You're like, oh god.
Oh, this is,
Uh,
Stop.
but I mean, think about it. Like if you've partied too hard one night and you wake up and you're like, I barely remember last night, but it was fucking awesome. Like you remember you had a great time, but you're like, hope I didn't do anything stupid. You know, like there is a little bit of that involved where she's kind of like, what did I do? Oh, I'm the star of a TV show now. Oh wow, I'm hosting the Golden Globes now. Oh wow, like all these ridiculous things that keep happening to her. But Patrick, there is definitely a thing where you're like, what is the benefit for the older version of you if you don't get it to enjoy any of this anymore? And like if it ruins your life, and it seems to ruin everybody's life who does it, because she keeps running into older people who are like, it's terrible. Yeah.
There needs
Oh,
to be
yeah,
a bit of suspension.
the nurse.
Of disbelief, a bit of suspension of disbelief, I think, still.
Again, that's
It's
why
not 100% tied, but
that's why it's an absurdist. That's why they make it absurdist, and
Yeah.
they're like, it's fake. You know, either you're on for the story to see how this plays out, or it's not for you. I mean, that's why
Right.
I don't know if you guys saw Swiss Army Man. It's Harry Potter as a dead corpse that farts.
Yeah.
It's fucking incredible. I couldn't believe it was one of those movies that you're like, who bought this movie? It's by the Daniels, the same guys who did
Yeah.
everything. Everywhere. But this guy's
So
on an
good.
island. A corpse washes up, and it's Daniel Radcliffe, and the corpse provides everything he needs for him. It becomes his Swiss Army knife, and he carries this corpse around to do stuff. And at one
Such a
point,
weird movie.
he's like, "I got to get off this island." This corpse starts farting, and he turns it into a jet ski that propels him across the water. It's absurd, but the movie is so beautiful because it's saying something bigger than
Yeah.
just Daniel Radcliffe as a corpse. This movie is saying so much more about society, about Hollywood than body horror gross switcheroonies. Yeah, a dream state. You slightly remember what you did and where you were, but you can't control it. You just watch as an observer in a haze. There's something to
Which
that.
is, I mean, it's its own prison in itself. If that's the case, that's like torturous.
She literally builds. I love how they like. One of my favorite bits about it, which is when I started realizing, like, oh, they're gonna get ridiculous with it. It's they show her like stripping nails, breaking shovels, smashing tiles, and then cut, and she's made a perfectly hinged hidden door. And I'm like, man, I'd be at Home Depot like 12 times that day if I was trying to do that. Like totally shows her messing up, and then all of a sudden cut perfect.
You don't even question it though, like because you've already gotten to that point where you're like, okay,
this
I
movie
guess,
is so ridiculous.
I think this begs, like, there's a lot of films like this that I think people have no clue what to do with when it comes to the idea of like an absurdist film. Like it's not real, but you're here for the story. You don't have to take what happens as serious. And it's like movies like Mother, Swiss Army Man, a movie called Shoot 'Em Up, where Colin Firth and Paul Giamatti have just gunfight after gunfight. That movie opens with Colin Firth stabbing a carrot through a man's head. People start walking out of the theater. And I said, that was one of the most brilliant moves you could do in a movie, because that just showed you that you are living in a Bugs Bunny cartoon with violence. That carrot, he's chewing it like Bugs Bunny, sharpens it to a point and jams it through a guy's head. People are like, oh, it's so ridiculous. If you're not on board for that, the rest of the movie will not be for you. And this movie keeps doing that. If you're not on board to sit through him eating shrimp, you're not going to be able to handle the last 10 minutes of this movie.
But nobody walked out of my theater. I mean,
really?
I don't know. And my uncle and aunt didn't walk out, and they've walked out of films. So like, I think it does captivate. It does hold you in its grasp, and it doesn't let go. And you kind of, and I said, well, why did you stay if you were so? And they said, we had to finish the film.
You
You know,
had
we
to.
had to see what happened. I mean, like you have to
So
see
good.
what becomes, you know,
That's the mark of a good
two.
film, you know, regardless if you liked it or not. It's still a great film if it's gonna,
Oh yeah.
hold your audience that long. You're like, I hate what I'm watching, but I need to know how it ends. And like, I would just argue to that person, then you liked it. Like, you might not like it
Yep.
per se, but you liked it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If you're talking about it too, you like there's something about it that
Yeah,
hooked you and
exactly.
that made an impression of you. And if it's even if it's negative, you're talking about it and it affected you enough to say, hey, I'm
Like
going to
my-
tell other people about it, you know, instead of just saying, oh, this sucked, I'm going to forget about it, never remember it, you know.
It's like my dad with Terrifier 2. When I took my dad to see Terrifier 2, he was, oh, that was awful. And then he just kept like, oh, remember that scene where he splashed the acid in her face? I hated the movie though. I'm like, okay, Dad, sure you did.
Sure you did.
Yeah.
But that's something true though too. It's like it's one thing if when things are divisive and it tells you that a film is onto something. If it's divisive in a way that is it's not just good and bad, but it's good and I don't know how to feel about it. And that's almost like such an interesting place to be for a movie when it's like you have left people in this sort of ambivalence. I don't know how to feel about it. It was well made, it was well acted. I don't think anybody's saying that the movie was badly made, badly written, badly acted. Everybody can agree that those things are there, but they're just, I don't know how it feels, so I don't know if I like it. That's a great place to be for a film. That's an okay place to be for a film. More films should leave you going, well, what is it? Because when you go to an art gallery, do you want the picture to be like, this is why Mona Lisa's smiling, guys? She's got a little secret. This is or do you want to look at it and go, man, what does that make me feel? And a movie that reflects yourself back at it is reflexive, makes you become reflexive to see how you actually feel about it. To me, that is the best form of art and sometimes makes the best films. Not all the time, but sometimes makes the best films when it doesn't just spoon feed you the answers.
And I think to that point, it's speaks on how movies nowadays don't do that. And that's why people who have seen this movie and don't know how to feel afterwards are uncomfortable because you're not like acclimatized to feeling uncomfortable in movies anymore, or like having to be thoughtful and like, well, what is this trying to say? And I don't understand, and all these questions, and you're just like, it makes you feel icky, just like the movie is, because they don't make movies like this anymore. So it's just like there's a lot of layers to this film, which is what so many reasons why I like this movie. Besides it just being good and grotesque and fun and all the things that we enjoy about the film, but how other people have been experiencing it also makes me enjoy it. Just because we need more cinema like this in the world. Like we just, as a society, we need more of this instead of the crap that just Hollywood keeps pumping out. Like
the $250 million
no one cares
superhero
anymore.
movie.
And that's the thing. It's like people, because it's become so big, because everything is is a global release that has to appeal to every market. Every quadrant of every market has to be able to be seen on an airplane. Like that is something that I think just makes movies worse because you're watering it down to be palpable for everybody, but not saying anything to anybody. And that sometimes you get a gem. We've had some really good horror films in the past few years, but when something like this stands out and is just like head and shoulders above the rest, I get really excited. Well, guys, we really went over that half hour of horror. It's been an hour now. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for joining. I hadn't met you before, so thank you for coming. You're welcome anytime. Anybody who knows their horror like you do, man, you really.
When are we going to talk about street trash? That's what I need to know.
You want to do a street trash one, man?
I mean, if we're going body horror,
we
I'm down for that.
In a couple of weeks, let's do a body melt thing where we start talking about street trash. We'll do The Incredible Melting Man. We'll do Body Melt. We can talk about the melt movies.
Can we talk about Videodrome at all? Like we do a body horror like.
Well, The Fly. I mean, The Fly is a fantastic body horror film.
Yeah,
we did The Fly a couple weeks ago. We did all all the Fly films. Fly, the first 3 old Fly films and the 2 newer ones. They were great.
I want to talk about Reanimator on that episode too.
Reanimator's
I
great.
love
Oh, that would
one.
be fun.
I love it.
Good episode.
So yeah,
Love
we'll do some Melt movies coming up. We'll find some time, and Chris, you can come back if you're available.
Hell yeah.
Let people know what you got going on. Is there anywhere where people follow you? What are you working on? Is there anything you need to
me?
promote? Yeah.
No. I actually just started a new job. I'm the head of cinematic arts at a nonprofit called Get Lit. And we're going to be making films with a bunch of poets, like young poets, like 16 to 22, and making some films with them. It's my new gig at the moment.
Sounds really fun. That sounds really like fulfilling too, because you're getting to work with young artists and help share and spread the love of cinema. That's really cool, man.
It's going to be fun.
Patrick, what do you got going on?
I mean, as always, you can check out all of the back episodes of Screenwriters Podcast, www.screenwriterspodcast.com, Screenwriters PC on X, Screenwriters Podcast on Instagram. Really fun show where we talk horror screenwriting with some of the best horror screenwriters in the game. We got William Malone on there. We've got Mick Garris. I mean, some really, really great episodes, and hopefully some new ones coming up soon. We're also on Block of Horror as one of the podcasts featured in our podcast studio. So if you go to blockofhorror.com, you can check out Screenwriters Podcast, go to the podcast radio station studio, and you can check out a bunch of those. It's really fun. So that's what I got going on. And you can follow me personally at New York in June on X and NY in June on Instagram.
Yeah. Chase, give them the handles, give them the plugs, man.
Yeah. So of course, watch me and Aaron here every Saturday on Half Hour of Horror. You can follow me on all the socials at Oh Hey It's Chase. And yeah, go to blockofhorror.com. Create your better self. The more perfect,
Block of
more
Horror.
you.
More perfect version.
Thanks to everybody who checked us out, who's been watching live on YouTube and on X. Big shout out to our Saturday morning crew for that. And anybody who watched live in the Prophets Theater, we appreciate you guys the most. We got to give away some blood coin. The code word for blood coin, if you go to our Discord, open up a ticket, type in this code. This week's code is going to be Monstro.
Love it.
Yes, the monstrous name of the end of the film. Yes, there's
Amazing.
Monstro right there.
Love it.
So that's the blood coin word is Monstro. So type that in, get people going, get you some blood coin. And yeah, you can follow me here, Block of Horror, and then also my other podcast, the Launchpad Podcast. It's on this side. There we go. We release every other Wednesday, and yeah, Block of Horror on all the platforms. Hats off and goodbye to TikTok tonight. It's over. What a run that was. That was fun.
Everybody get on Red. What is it? Red Note. Red Book?
Note. Yeah, I got to learn my Mandarin a little bit better, but we could all hop on Red Note. No, that's pay attention to that, guys. It may seem silly. I don't give a shit about TikTok, but it is important to pay attention when people cancel platforms and voices of the people. I will have to say that right now. So until next time. Guys, this has been the Block of Horror. We appreciate you, and we will see you soon. Thanks again, everybody.
Later, guys.